The IELTS writing task 2 is an opinion essay. It is probably the most important part of your writing task in the IELTS, and it is one that you definitely do not want to mess up. So how can you ensure that you do a good job of it and that you deploy all the right strategies and tips to ensure that you get the maximum scores that is applicable for that task? That is what I will take you through today, and I would advise you to please relax and watch this video till the very end, because there are some tips that would be embedded towards the end that you need to know. For the IELTS writing task 2, there are different types of questions that could be given, and these will be dealt with at a later time in a later video. But the basic structure of an IELTS writing task 2, which is the same for both the academic model and the general training model, is that it is an opinion essay. Here, you will be given a question that has a concept or a topic or an issue embedded in it, and you will be asked your opinion on it, or you will be asked to support or dispute a particular claim or a particular view. Or you could be asked to discuss both views, to discuss two opposing views, and then give your own opinion. You could also be asked to examine a problem and also propose solutions. You could also be asked to examine a concept for the causes of the problem and also to outline the effects that it has. You could also be asked to look at a concept or to look at an issue and looking at the advantages and the disadvantages. There are various ways that the essays can come in. But the underlying principle is that in every essay, your opinion is the most important thing that is required. There are no correct answers in the IELTS writing task 2. What we are interested in isn't the correct answer. What we are interested in is your answer. So, the content of what you're saying, the quality of your content is not as important as the quality of expression. It is your expression that is assessed. How do you express your ideas? How do you express what you feel, what you know, or what you think about this particular concept? Nobody is going to fact check you. Nobody is going to penalize you for giving an idea or for giving reasons or for expressing a view that they might find laughable or that they might find childish or that they might find even incorrect. As long as you have a solidly logical way of expressing your point and defending it, you will get the maximum scores applicable in the IELTS. It is important to clear this because I see a lot of people enter the IELTS writing test seeing it as a test of intelligence, and this is the first step to failure. Seeing it as a test of intelligence means that what you see is you start disturbing yourself, you start thinking about the things that you do not know about the concept that has been asked. Nobody requires you to have specialist knowledge or in-depth knowledge about the topic of discussion. All they need you to do is to have a working idea, or a working view, or a working opinion of the concept, and then being able to defend or back up or expand your point. That is the most simple and basic way to look at the IELTS writing task 2. So what does it entail and how does it look like? The structure for the IELTS writing task 2 is the most important thing that you need to know. Once you get your structure right, chances are that your ideas will be arranged in a logical manner that can get you that desired band 8 or the desired band 9. The IELTS essay, writing task 2 essay, has a maximum paragraph length of 5 paragraphs and minimum of 4 paragraphs. I'll take that again. The writing task 2 in the IELTS has a maximum paragraph length of 5 paragraphs and a minimum of 4 paragraphs. Which means that under no circumstances should you write an IELTS essay that has 7-8 paragraphs. What are you doing? What are you discussing? The longest type of question in the IELTS writing task 2 that could require you to write a 5-paragraph essay are questions that ask you to discuss both views and give your own opinion. Obviously, in this type of essay, you will be required to give an introduction, a first paragraph discussing one view, another paragraph discussing the opposing view, and then one paragraph expressing your own opinion, and then the conclusion, which will lead us to 5 paragraphs. Ideally, the IELTS essay is usually just 4 paragraphs, an introduction, 2 body paragraphs, and then your conclusion. If you're asked to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of a particular concept, you have the introduction, one paragraph for advantages, one paragraph for disadvantages, and your conclusion. A problem solution essay would have a problem paragraph, a solutions paragraph, an introduction, and a conclusion. A cause and effect essay would also have a cause paragraph, an effects paragraph, an introduction, and a conclusion. So, looking at all these varying types of essay, you discover that the structure does not exceed that 4 to 5 paragraph length. And this is significant because I see a lot of test takers approach the test and seeing it as a test where you're supposed to write not less than 250 words. They assume that the only way to make 250 words is to increase their paragraph, the number of paragraphs that they are writing. And what this leads them to is that they start bringing irrelevant information or diverging from the topic or the concept that they're supposed to address for the writing task. Do not fall into that trap. Keep your eyes on the ball and you ensure that you express yourself in the appropriate way and the most effective way possible that you can use to pass across your information. So, let's start from the introduction of the IELTS. The introductory paragraph in an IELTS essay. What does the introductory paragraph contain? What does it look like? And what is the structure of a standard IELTS essay? The first thing I will do is to give you a structure, a skeletal structure of every IELTS essay. That is what you have in your introductory paragraph, in your body paragraph, and in your concluding paragraph. And this skeletal structure is applicable to any type of question that you can get, be it a problem solution, an advantage, disadvantage, a cause and effect, or even an essay that asks you to either disagree or just agree with a particular claim or a particular view. This particular skeletal structure works for all those types of essays. In subsequent videos, which will be our practical video, I will put the skeletal structure to the test by filling in each of all the elements in the structure and practicalizing for you how you can use those structure to write a complete essay in the IELTS. But for the purpose of this video, I will only outline the elements of the structure and then I will go ahead to give you specific tips as they pertain to the introduction, to the body paragraphs, and to the conclusion. And like I mentioned, in subsequent videos, we will flesh this out and then see it in action. So, a standard IELTS essay in the introduction will have this particular structure, which I will list out and you will be seeing on your screen. Your introduction starts with the first element, which is the hook. The hook is a statement that sets the context for the topic of discussion. It helps you to start strong. The next element after the hook will be rephrasing the question. Rephrasing the question. Now, this is an optional element as depending on the type of question that you're dealing with, you may or may not need to rephrase your question. Like I mentioned earlier, when we get to the practical video, we will put this into action and you will see instances where a rephrasing of the question is important and where the rephrasing of the question is not relevant. The next element after rephrasing the question is your thesis statement. Your thesis statement is basically your opinion statement. It is that statement that says, in my opinion, personally, from my own point of view, that statement that sets out the tone for what you believe, for the stand that you're taking about a particular concept is your thesis statement. And this thesis statement doesn't stand alone. It must be accompanied by your reasons. What are your reasons? Your reasons are the points that led you to choosing that particular stand. For example, in a question that asks, who is the most important member of the family unit, the father or the mother? If I were to respond to that question, my thesis statement would be, personally, I believe the father is the most important member of the family as he is the disciplinarian and the breadwinner. Disciplinarian and breadwinner are the two reasons why I believe that the father is the most important member of the family unit. Your thesis statement follows that format. You express your view or your opinion and you back it up with the reasons why you are choosing that particular stand. This is an essential and integral part of your introduction, and failure to put this in your introduction definitely will water down the quality of your writing. The next element after your thesis statement is what we call the outline or your structure statement. This is a statement that describes how you intend to address the question, how you intend to structure your writing. in this statement, you have something that you have, for example, you could have a statement that says, in this essay, I will discuss the benefits and the demerits of this particular concept and also back it up with examples to illustrate my points. That clearly shows the examiner that the structure for this essay would be a benefits and demerits, or an advantage and disadvantage paragraph. In this essay, I will look at the problems and also prefer solutions to it. This clearly tells the examiner how you intend to approach that question. The outline or structure statement may not be a compulsory part of your introduction, but it's an essential part, as it allows the examiner to have a clear path of how you intend to present your information. Remember, it is a test of communication, and what you want to do is to make your communication as effective and as easy to absorb as possible for the examiner. If you put your communication in such a way that it is ambiguous, or that it stresses the examiner in such a way that he finds it very hard to extract meaning from what you've written, it would definitely be hard-pressed to give you a very good score. So, write in the most effective, clear, and simple way as possible so that you can allow the examiner to extract your information effectively and easily. Doing this will set you up for success in the writing section of the IELTS. Moving on, the body paragraph. A typical body paragraph in the writing task, in the task 2 of the writing section of the IELTS, follows this format. It starts with a topic sentence. Your topic sentence is basically the most important sentence in the paragraphs that carries the weight of the information or the message in the paragraph. It is what the whole paragraph is all about. It is what the paragraph is discussing. So your paragraph, your body paragraph starts with the topic sentence because you want to put your best foot forward. You want to put the reason why you are writing that paragraph as the first thing that the examiner would see. This allows the examiner to easily skim through your writing if they intend not to read in depth. So your body paragraph also contains just what? Your connective and your point. What do I mean by that? Of course, if you're starting a paragraph in the IELTS, you definitely want to start with a cohesive device or a connecting word to show that your essay has cohesion. So my first paragraph in the IELTS would probably start with a sentence like, to begin with, or firstly. And if I put this, that is my connective. What if I put this, I will now put the points that I'm going to discuss in that paragraph. So, for example, when I mentioned earlier that I personally believe that the father is the most important member of the family unit because he's the disciplinarian and the breadwinner. This obviously shows that in that essay, the 2 points that I will be developing for choosing the stand where I chose a father over the mother would be disciplinarian and breadwinner. Subsequently, the first sentence in my first body paragraph would be, to begin with, the most important reason why fathers are more important than mothers is because they are breadwinners. What you have there is my connective and my point, making up my topic sentence. To begin with, the most important reason why fathers are special than mothers is because they are breadwinners. Full stop. This sentence is non-negotiable. It's an element that must be in your body paragraph. The next element in your body paragraph will be the part where I call the define/explain. Here, you take a keyword from your topic sentence and you either choose to define it or explain it. This is the part where you expand your point, where if your point contains some ambiguous words, or if your main point contains some words that are technical and needs to be further expatiated, this is where you do it. It's the second element of your body paragraph. The third element in your body paragraph is the supporting details. Supporting details are compulsory. They are essential for your essay because the question clearly states that you should provide reasons for your answer and also give examples drawn from your knowledge or experience to illustrate or to back them up. If you write an essay and you do not expand your points by giving examples drawn from your knowledge or from your experience, you cannot get that band 9 that you so desire. So your supporting detail can either be a fact, that is embedded, that has some statistics or numbers embedded in it, or it could be a memory from either your past or from an experience narrated to you by someone that you know. The last important element, or the last element in your body paragraph, is what I call the tie back. The tie back is simply a statement that ties everything that you've said in that paragraph to the topic sentence that you mentioned at the beginning of the paragraph. For example, if I've written an essay where my body paragraph is all about the father being the breadwinner, and I have defined what the breadwinner is or explained the concept of a breadwinner, and I've also given supporting detail, maybe by giving a fact from a survey drawn for why fathers are breadwinners, or how in most families fathers are the breadwinners. My tie back will be a sentence that goes thus: this simply shows that fathers are important because they provide for the family. What this does is that it significantly ties up the whole essay, the whole paragraph, as a single unit, and it's an important part of your paragraph because it allows you to move smoothly to the next point that you're trying to make, and also re-emphasizes the point that you're making in that paragraph. For your conclusion paragraph or your concluding paragraph, the structure is very easy. In fact, your conclusion is the shortest and the easiest part of your essay, as you're not introducing any new points in your conclusion. You're only restating or rephrasing the things or summarizing the things that you've mentioned before, and also ending on a very strong point. So for your concluding paragraph, you start, the first element would be a summary or a rephrasing of your thesis and your reasons. This is very, very important. So you start with a connective word that maybe says that to sum it all up, or finally, or in conclusion, and then you summarize your thesis with the reasons that you've given to back it up. And then after you do that, you can either end by giving a recommendation, making a prediction, or you can either end by using a rhetorical question. These three elements are easy ways to end your essay on a very strong note, and we will be practicalizing them when we get to the video where we actually take up an actual writing question for the IELTS. Yes, now that I've read out the structure for the IELTS, for the essays in the IELTS, I will go ahead and dwell on some peculiar tips for each of those three parts that I have mentioned, which are the introduction, the body paragraphs, and then the conclusion. So for your introduction, why is it important? It is important because the first impressions matter. It sets the context of what you're writing about, and it indicates to the examiner your level of language competence. A good introduction captures the examiner's attention, and it keeps them interested, so much so that they want to read how you go ahead to express yourself or to defend the points that you've raised in your introduction. So I mentioned earlier that you start with a hook, which is a general statement that outlines the context of the topic or the write-up. You follow with a rephrasing or restating of the question in your own words. This is another significant area where your knowledge of synonyms and rephrasing or paraphrasing will come into play. Now, the next thing you do after that, depending on the type of question, would be to state your thesis or opinion. Depending on the type of question that you have, it will be to state your thesis or your opinion. When we get to dealing with the different question types, I will explain what I mean by your thesis being dependent on the type of question that you have. And finally, you give an outline or structure statement which explains how you plan to approach the question, or how you plan to express yourself, or to lay out or to structure your ideas in response to the question that has been asked. The body paragraph for and writing task 2 also follows the format that I have listed earlier. You start with a connective, which is embedded in your topic sentence, and after that you have a define or explain section where you go ahead and you give a definition, or if the topic requires it, an explanation for the keyword in your thesis. As much as possible, this is very, very important. The kind of expressions that you can use to do this would be, for example, if I were to define the word breadwinner or disciplinarian, I could start with and say, according to the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary, a disciplinarian is someone who does A, B, C, D, E. This automatically improves my word count, according to the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary. 7 words just to define a particular term, a particular concept. Or you could just go ahead and you explain the term disciplinarian in your own words. The next thing after that is the supporting detail. Now, for the supporting detail, I mentioned earlier that it could either be a fact, which is something that is drawn from your knowledge, or it could either be a memory, which is something that is drawn from your experience. Now, in coming up with the supporting detail, a lot of people ask me, what if I don't know any facts about this thing? How do I defend? How do I expand my points? Please, it is okay for you to cook up fictional facts to defend your points in the essay. Why is this? Nobody is going to fact check you in the IELTS. Nobody has the time to pause reading your essay, go online to Google if the facts that you have given to back up your point is true or valid or false. Nobody's going to do that. But what you want to do is you don't want to give a lie that is so outlandish or that is so unbelievable that it doesn't have any bearing on the topic that you want to discuss. Let me give you an example. If I'm writing an essay where I'm defending the father and I say that the father is more important because he's a disciplinarian or is the breadwinner, and I want to come up with a fact for that, I could say, according to a survey carried out by the University of California in 2001, 100 families were assessed to discover their source of income. After the assessment, 78% of them expressed the fact that the fathers were the sole source of income for their families, while only 21% of them expressed the fact that the mother helped out with income in the family. This simply shows that fathers are so important or are significantly important because they bear the weight of income or providing for the family. Now, what I just said now is untrue. It never happened. But does it back up my point? Yes, it does. Does it perfectly illustrate the point that fathers are disciplinarians and this is why they are important in the family unit? Yes, it does. This is how you want to approach the IELTS. So, one other thing that I did when I gave that example was to ensure that I put in numbers. Why are statistics important in an IELTS essay? They are important because the first thing that they would do is to catch the reader's attention. If I'm reading a piece of text and I see numbers in between or embedded in there, my eye will definitely go to them and I will want to read the surrounding information around where those numbers are. This is a way for you to call the examiner's attention to the important points that you're trying to make. Another reason why I would use statistics is that they make me more believable and they make you sound more academic. And this is something that is definitely a good point for you in the IELTS writing task. For memories, how do you introduce your memories? You could start by saying, I remember from an experience. I remember a particular experience. I recall from something that I was told. This illustrates. All these are ways of introducing an experience. A caveat though, when you're using a memory or you're using an experience to illustrate or to expand your point, try as much as possible not to bring in irrelevant details. A lot of people start by narrating an experience and before you know it, they have a paragraph that is bloated, that is overflowing with irrelevant points that do not have any bearing on the topic of discussion. Do not fall into this trap. Finally, the last element in your body paragraph is the tie back. And the tie back just shows that what you have been saying in all the body of that paragraph is tied or related to the topic sentence that you mentioned at the beginning of the paragraph. It essentially helps you to end your paragraph, to help you to conclude your paragraph and makes it a single unit that is expressing just one particular thought or idea or particular strand of the topic that you're discussing. For the concluding paragraph, I also outlined the structure that the concluding paragraph takes, and this I will review it also so that we should be able to have a clear idea of how it is. Your conclusion shouldn't be less than 4 sentences and at most 7 sentences. The conclusion is usually the smallest or the shortest part of your essay in the IELTS. So you must endeavor not to introduce any new points in your conclusion. You also should endeavor to ensure that your conclusion is tied significantly to everything that you've been discussing. This is a challenge that I see with a lot of test takers. They get to the conclusion and they remember points, strong points that they should have used in the essay, and they start bringing that into the conclusion. This is wrong and you should not do this. You briefly summarize your main points in one complete sentence, in one complex sentence, or 2 or 3 compound sentences, and after that you restate your thesis, your opinion, or your stand. I've also mentioned how you can do this by rephrasing or just paraphrasing what you've said before in your introduction. And then you bring the essay to a satisfying and clear end by using either a prediction, by making a recommendation, or by ending it with a rhetorical question. All of these 3 things are options that you can use, and you should not use both. You should not use more than 2 of them in any particular essay, and I will definitely show you how to use them in the practical videos that will follow up with this writing video for this particular IELTS multi-step program. Please, as much as possible, endeavor not to introduce any new ideas or new points in your conclusion. What are the things that you must do for your writing task 2? Essential things that you must do for you to achieve any measure of success in your writing task 2. First thing is this: be aware of the different types of essay and know if you're to give an opinion or not. This is very, very important. There are so many different types of essays that could be given to you in the writing task, task 2 for the IELTS, and I have mentioned them earlier. I've outlined them by saying that you could be given an advantage or disadvantage essay, a problem solution essay, a cause and effect essay, an agree or disagree essay, or an essay that requires you to discuss both views and also give your own opinion. Next thing that you need to do is to have a plan before you start writing. Planning is an integral part of success for the IELTS. Have a plan, brainstorm, jot down all your ideas, rank them in the order of importance, weed them out, weed the ones that you do not need out, and leave the ones that are essential even before you start writing. In fact, it is advised that before you start writing your essay at all, before you put pen to paper to start writing your essay, you take at least 10 minutes to interpret the question, jot down the points that you're going to use to answer that question, even add the examples and the supporting details that you're going to use to expand those points before you start writing at all. This will make your job so easy, because the only thing that you need to do when you start writing will be to consult your outline, to consult your jottings, and then just develop them. As opposed to someone who picks up their pen, looks at a question and thinks this is an easy question, and they start writing immediately. What that will do for you is that you will get to your first paragraph, and at the end of the first paragraph, you will stop and start thinking up another point to develop your second paragraph. And once you have this break in transmission, or you have this break in the flow of your ideas, it will affect the quality of your writing. The final thing that you need to do for your writing task 2 is to proofread. Review your essay. Edit your essay. No IELTS essay is perfect until it has been proofread, reviewed, and edited. Never ever join the gang of those who believe that they have written a perfect essay and they do not need to look at it again and just submit. 9 times out of 10 when I mark an IELTS essay and I identify 10 errors, 8 out of those errors are errors that could have been corrected by the test taker if they are taking time to only proofread and review their essay. Never ever submit your IELTS essay without taking a second, third look at it before you submit. And one other tip for you for proofreading is please read out. When you are proofreading your essay, read out or sound out the words that you've written. Why is this? Your ear has a very higher chance, or has a much higher chance of catching errors or catching expressions that sound funny than your eyes will. Most times when we're proofreading our essays, we just skim through and our eyes has a tendency of overlooking some particular errors. When you proofread your essay, and when I tell you to sound them out, I do not mean that you should read at the volume at which I am talking right now. That would definitely not be good, as you would disturb other test takers in the exam hall. But what you can do is to vocalize those words at a volume that would only be applicable or only be accessible to you alone. You can hear yourself when you sound out the words. You can even just mouth out the words, and that would also help you to achieve that editing or proofreading thing that we want you to do. Next thing that we will look at are the things that you should not do for the writing task 2. The things that are your don'ts for your writing task 2. The first thing that you want to avoid is ignoring what the task requires of you. A lot of test takers do not interpret the question properly, and they ignore at least a part of what the instructions tell them to do. For example, discussing only the advantages when the advantage and disadvantages are mentioned in the question. For example, also discussing only one point of view when the question significantly asks you to discuss both views and express your own opinion. This is a very easy way to fail in the IELTS, by not interpreting the question correctly or by not doing completely what the question asks you to do. Another thing that you should avoid doing is trying to be too complex. I see a lot of test takers enter the exam hall feeling that the more jaw-breaking words that they use, the more esoteric vocabulary that they use, the more refined their ideas are, the better marks that they will get. No, this is not it. I have seen people who enter the IELTS and write with the simplest ideas possible, but their expression is top-notch and they get the maximum scores that is applicable for that particular task. Trying to be too complex will only set you up for failure. One other thing that you also do not want to do in the IELTS is you should not, and I will repeat this, you should not write an essay where you do not paragraph correctly. Paragraphing is an essential element of success in the IELTS. Your paragraphs must be clearly delineated. Your paragraphs must be clearly structured in such a way that they only address one point or one particular section of the question at a time. When you are writing paragraphs in the IELTS, you should adhere to two rules. The first one is a paragraph is only noted or identified by an indent. You start a paragraph by leaving an indent, which is a small space between the margin and your first letter for the paragraph. Another alternative way of indicating a paragraph is to leave one full line before you start, between two paragraphs. For me, I always advise my test takers to leave both a line and also the indent. Why is this important? For those of us who have really bad handwriting, our handwriting is illegible, leaving one line and also leaving the indent ensures that the space in between the first paragraph and the succeeding paragraph is so vast or is so clear that no examiner will be able to juggle it all up or will be able to jumble it all up. Please, as much as possible, if you have a problem with your handwriting, practice writing with a pencil before the day of the test, as you will be using a pencil in the IELTS writing to write your essay. Why do I recommend using the pencil? It is easier for you to erase your errors using the pencil. It is easier for you when you're proofreading to also impute new ideas or new corrections when you are proofreading if you use a pencil, as opposed to using a pen where the only thing that you can do if you've made a mistake is to cancel it all out, which might make your work look much more rough than it should be. And if your handwriting is not so legible, practice writing clearly and as legibly as possible before the day of the test. One of the worst things that you can face in the IELTS is to write a very good essay that nobody can read. So please practice writing with a pencil before the day of the test. Practice writing legibly before the day of the test also. And finally, before the day of the test, if you know that you want to do well in the writing task for the IELTS, practice writing at least 3 complete essays before you take the test itself. Write 3 complete essays, get a second opinion or a reviewer to review it for you before you go ahead to take the writing test. Do not assume that, oh, I'm good at writing, oh, I have so skills at writing, I do not need to practice, I do not need to know where I stand before the day of the test. You will be shocked to discover that on the day of the test, you may not be able to deploy all those strategies or tips or all those strengths that you feel that you have inside of you. Proofreading, like I mentioned earlier, is important for the IELTS, and when you're proofreading, I would advise you, if you have the time, to do it twice. The first time you're proofreading is to correct errors and mistakes. The second time you're proofreading is to improve the quality of your writing. That is the time where you change words, where you change particular words for better sounding words, or for words that particularly effectively convey the thought or the idea that you want to convey in that particular expression. Proofreading is essential, like I mentioned, and every other tip that I mentioned in this video is also very, very essential and integral to your success in the IELTS. Practice these tips, pause this video if need be, rewind the video if need be, and as much as possible, deploy these strategies in an actual exercise where you write out. And if you need extra tips or you need further information about how to write your essay, please watch the next video, which we will be uploading, which is a practical video where we put all these tips and all these structures into action by writing an actual IELTS essay. I can't wait to see you succeed in the IELTS, and I definitely know that you will be one of those people who will give a testimony of having watched this video, deployed the strategies, and achieved the maximum scores applicable in the IELTS.